just to give you an update on the upcoming opportunities ahead this month, Thursday night, we are welcomed by Greg Harbidge, who is from the Melbourne Business School, and he's going to deliver a really, really timely session around adaptation and innovation in recovery. So those bookings are still open, and I'm going to dump that link into the chat line for you to please circulate with your teams. And I won't shut those bookings off until the day of the session. Also, as a reminder, there are heaps of ways to stay connected with us. We have our Member PD webpage where this session will be put. We have our social media pages, and of course we have our team app. But today, as I transition out of my Melbourne Storm jumper and into my Movember gear, our final mental wellbeing Monday session for October, and also the end of Mental Health Month. We're so excited to bring the Movember team to you. We welcome Liam Kavanagh, who's the Community Fundraising Manager, big wave, and Jake Lambert, Community Development Executive. Look, since 2003, Movember has funded more than 1,250 men's health projects around the world, challenging the status quo, shaking up men's health research, and transforming the way that services reach and support men. This year, LSV is supporting Movember in a different way with the LSV fundraising team. So I'm popping that link into the chat line. The guys will talk about it a little bit more, obviously, in their session. But absolutely fantastic to have you guys on board. Over to you.
Thanks, Sheila. Jake's going to jump on and sort out the sharing screen side of things. So
very, very best. Microsoft Teams is the absolute bejeebers out of me, but let's have a go.
And don't worry, we're all living and working in this space, so we're together, guys.
Exactly right. Well, something's happening on your screen, Jake. We're getting closer. But yes, I'll leave it with you to kick things off, Jake, and thanks for having us, guys.
Fantastic. Yeah, just to obviously quickly reiterate what Liam said, thank you so much for having us this afternoon. It's so great to be able to come in virtually and still make sure that we're connecting during this time. So today, myself and Liam will be running a Movember Conversations workshop. We'll get to what Movember Conversations is in itself a little bit later, but there's a few things to go through just before we get started. We obviously want this to be as interactive as possible. So albeit it's a virtual room, there's a few things that we will cover today. So we'll be looking at how Movember is making an impact in society today, how to support a mate who's struggling. So really delve into our digital peer-to-peer support tool, Movember Conversations, and then how you guys can support Movember as well, given that we're only a week away from the hairy season. So before we dive into it, we want, as we said, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So get involved, unmute, jump in the chat box. Now, me and Liam, we have to confess we aren't Microsoft Teams people, so we might be just a fraction behind you guys if you're pros on this platform. But we
just
want people
a fraction.
It's just a fraction. We are pros at a few things, but not really tech usually. So show support, jump in. Feel free to come off mute if there's anything that you want to share, and make sure we are getting around each other. But the chat box is huge. We want people to, when we aren't sharing screen, we want to see people's faces. We want everyone to be getting involved. And something that's really important is that sometimes the content that we speak about here can draw out some unexpected emotions and some feelings and stuff, and that's okay. But we will be sharing tips on how we can check in with ourselves and with each other. But we definitely recommend that everyone heads to movember.com/get support if they feel the need to further some knowledge and feel like they need some professional support during or after this workshop, or if they know somebody who might. There's a whole range of different services there that we'd absolutely encourage you to get involved with. A quick question for Liam here, just before we try and open it up as far and as wide as possible. Liam, do you know how much a polar bear weighs?
A polar bear. I'm going to guess a little bit more than you and me, Jake. I'm going to guess 500 kilos. We're probably more in the 4s range, but What we would love is, and today is going to be a pretty, I guess, a casual conversation. So we do want to hear from you guys a lot. So let's get that going right now. We would love to see your guesses on how much a polar bear weighs in the chat box. So I know it can be a little bit stiff at times on Zoom, but we will just sit on this slide for 40 minutes if we have to. No Googling. Great call, Sheila. 1,750. 300 kilos. There's a fair mix around there, which we love. And thanks for everyone for jumping in on the chat box, because it does make it a hell of a lot better when we hear from you guys. But I was foxing. I do know the answer to this. So a polar bear weighs enough to break the ice. So what we're going to do right now is firstly a horrible joke. And secondly, we're going to do an icebreaker. So as we kind of alluded to, it's really stiff on these sort of Teams meetings and things like that. It's not, certainly doesn't replace human connection, does it? And we all miss being able to interact and share and talk. So we've got a few icebreakers that I guess warm us up in doing that. So this icebreaker, if we jump onto the next slide, Jake, is a bit of a, I guess, a reflection and sharing process. So we want you to jump into that chat box and we want you to share something you've learned about yourself recently. So think over the last couple of months, certainly we've all faced some challenges in Victoria, whether that's regional or metro, there's been different challenges to overcome. So we just want to hear a little bit about something you've learned about yourself recently. So that can be as deep or as shallow as you're comfortable to go. I love that someone's put that little gif there of Ted laughing. That's a great shout. Claire loves her job, which is a great reflection. Would love to hear from a few other people as well. We'll give it a moment for everyone to have a think, and you can stop listening to me for a second, which I'm sure will be nice. I love my job and I miss my job. Thanks, Claire. Next level appreciation of those I can't see. Could you share a little bit about what you're saying there, Sheila?
Yeah, it's, I've always been a social person, and, this is the positiveness of having online. And this will be a positive moving forward no matter what, but there's something so different about being in the presence of somebody, their body language, the way that you feel in when you're in the presence of somebody, standing in a room in front of someone, hugging someone, it's just, I appreciated that before, but I didn't realize how important that was until now. It's
an amazing reflection on the little things too, isn't it? And just those simple things that we have took for granted. And Nicholas in the chat there, I took my pre-lockdown life for granted. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking that. And I often think about the things that used to stress me out, and then I look back now and say, oh, what was I worried about? But yeah, resilience and humour, Mark, it's a great share. 1%, it's all really good points. And hopefully that exercise just was a little bit of a moment for you to reflect and have a think about what the past few months have been like for you. Certainly we know that it's been challenging, given that this is a group of people from Victoria, but yeah, and again, like, this icebreaker is all about just understanding that we do really want to hear from you guys today. We don't want to drive the conversation. We want you guys to drive the conversation. So please share as much as you can, because we'd love to hear from you. So thanks everyone for jumping into that. And I'll throw back to Jake to just, I guess, frame a little bit about what Movember is for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar as Jake and myself.
Yeah.
Sorry boys, I might just quickly jump in as well. For those that don't have access to the chat line, there is a little raising hand function. So if that hand does go up, it's just because one of our people can't actually access the chat. Thanks, Jake.
No worries. Thank you for that. Yeah, as Liam said, it's really important for us. And it's really humbling for us to be able to share the work that Movember's doing, and we are acutely aware that thanks to the support that we get from our community, that's why we can do the work we do. And it's really important for us to be as transparent as possible and to let our communities know as much about Movember and the work we do as possible. So Movember's vision, we are we are the leading global organisation who are committed to changing the face of men's health. And that's a responsibility that we take really seriously, and we do that because we know that on average men die 6 years earlier than women. It's due to largely preventable reasons. So we focus on 3 key cause areas in our fight to change the face of men's health, and they are mental health and suicide prevention, prostate cancer and testicular cancer, as well as investing in pioneering research and preventative health programs across all our cause areas. We also have a really strong health promotion focus as well. So as we said, we are the leading men's health charity in the world. Here's just a bit of a breakdown of some of the figures that over our amazing community has allowed us to invest in our key cause areas there. So there's some really significant investments in over 1,250 different programs across the world, and that includes more than 140 mental health and suicide prevention projects across 6 countries, and those numbers are ever growing. So yeah, there's some amazing figures there, but we know that we've got so much more work to do in the men's health space. So some of our work in mental health, as much as me and Liam could probably talk about it all day, we don't do it as much justice as some of our amazing content pieces do. And the next video, which should work, I believe, with sound and all, if my Microsoft Teams experience is going as well as I think it is a great snapshot of some of the work we're doing. So hopefully this goes off without a hitch.
What we want to do is just throw out something positive to the younger kids. Don't feel like you've got to be ashamed of anything that's happening at home or in the streets.
Change can come through these programs, and I've seen it change lives.
1, 2, double jab. 1, 2, double jab.
These are socially isolated young men. This is a program about friendship. It's about connecting people. It's about supporting each other through tough times, because that's really what we're here for.
Programs like Photo Voice allow a group of veterans to work together to solve their own problems.
They said that this is the way that we do things in the military. We plan a mission, and then we do that mission together.
Guys can't go up to each other and say, you know what, mate, I'm lonely. Fancy being a mate? Do you fancy going to the pub with me? Guys can't do that. Why? Why can't they do it? Because there's a stigma around it. There's no stigma coming here. Anybody is welcome at Pike.
There are so many guys in Australia that are struggling alone. They're not having conversations, they're not reaching out saying that I need help. This program with Waves of Wellness is about being able to normalise the fact that we all go through really shit times in life, so let's just have a yarn about them. And in the meantime, let's go surfing.
For a population of about 1,000, I would expect 5 young people to die every year from suicide. The best way for us to heal is that we need to heal ourselves. So on the land-based program, the young men and boys who grew up with a well-known hunter learn how to live off the land, they learn the culture. These guys are alive.
Movember Foundation is changing the game for us.
I think the most important thing is actually the hope that this brings.
We're changing lives, we're changing attitudes, we're helping men.
Thanks for sharing that one, Jake. And we can probably stop the screen share for a second if I don't want to push our luck with, yeah, beautiful. So, and Claire's all over it, because I was just about to say, guys, we would love to get everyone to switch their videos on. It'd be great to see some faces and that kind of thing. So if you can and if you're comfortable, it would be awesome to see some more faces on the Zoom call for the next little exercise that we're going to run. How good's this? Bernadette's in. Nicholas is in with a mighty beard, by the way, Nicholas, just quietly. Another Claire. Great. Awesome to see so many faces. And Sheila, just wanted to get your expertise here. We're going to run a bit of an exercise where we're going to hear from everyone in the call. Is it better to use the chat function, do you think, or to use the raise hands function? What's going to be easier for everyone?
I think giving the option of both because they can run hand in hand.
Perfect. Hand in hand, raise hands. Great little segment there.
You picked up when I put
But awesome. So with an exercise that we're going to run here, we talk so much about the stats and the impact that we're having and the people we're trying to help. But the stats are so large and the numbers are so significant that we also know that people in this room have probably been in some way affected by the work that Movember's trying to do in the cause areas that we do most of our work in. So this exercise is pretty simple, right? So I'm going to read out some statements. If that statement is true for you, you can either put a Y in the chat box, which means yes. So yes, that statement's true about me. Or if for whatever reason you can't use the chat box, feel free to raise your hand as well. So it's a pretty simple exercise. So we'll give it a bit of a demo here. So raise your hand or yes in the chat box if you think or you know that you'd look good with a mustache. So if that's true about you, Jake's raised his hand pretty quickly there. We've got the chat box going as well. There's not many mo's on this call, but Nicholas, I almost feel bad trying to ask you to shave off that beard of yours. Great.
The beard's actually quite new. So the beard's a lockdown thing. Normally it is moustache, but
well, we can work with that.
Yeah, don't have to impress anyone at the moment. Don't have any meetings to go to.
Well, it's impressing us. I can give you the red up tip. My goodness me.
Awesome. So we've got this exercise down pat. So you've got the two options there. So the next question is, over the past 3 months, have you picked up a new hobby? So if that's true about you, just a Y in the chat box or raise the hand. Great. And Claire's all over it too. If you've got your video on, you can just raise your hand. Plenty of ways to see what's happening here. Thanks, everyone. So these questions will start to get pointier and pointier. So just know that you're in a safe space. And if you're uncomfortable at all, do feel free to reach out. But over the past couple of months, have you picked up any bad habits? Thanks, everyone. And a yes or no in the chat box or hands raised if you often talk a good game with your mates around mental health and self-care, but you don't always actually walk the talk yourself and hold yourself to the same account. Thanks, everyone. A couple more questions. Can we get a response if in the last month or so a mate has reached out to you to see if you're okay? And we'd also like to know if in the last month or so, have you checked in on someone that you're worried about? It's great to see a lot of hands going up there. And it's always an interesting reflection. We do have a couple more. In the last month or so, have you felt lonely or disconnected at any point? And lucky last question. In the last month or so, have you struggled to find the words to connect with a mate who might need your support? Awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing, and appreciate the fact that everyone was so open and honest despite Jake and my clear lack of tech ability to get it as seamless as it could be. But I guess I firstly wanted to acknowledge everyone's sharing and openness there. And I guess on top of that, I'd like to take a moment to maybe just get a read of how that exercise felt for everyone. So in the chat box, would love to hear from everyone, like just the word that comes to mind. What are you feeling right now after answering those questions in such a public way? And if anyone wants to come off mute and share how they're feeling, now's a great time to do that as well. Obviously, not everyone has the chat box. Reflective. It is interesting, Mark, isn't it? That's sort of just taking a moment to think a little deeper. It's good confronting. I think like a good way of good confronting. I like that. Don't often spend time reflecting. Yeah, there's a lot of reflective themes coming through there, which is great. And I think it's you know, it's tough sometimes, and it gives you perspective and all these things that are coming through to dig that little bit deeper than the surface and actually say, oh, I know these things are important, but am I actually, you know, walking the walk and doing it myself? So with that in mind, I'd love to create an opportunity here for someone to share a little bit more. Maybe someone came to your mind when you were answering these questions. Maybe an experience of your own came to mind when you were thinking about your answers. Maybe something that's just been weighing on you that you'd like to share, or maybe people don't know too much about. And this is, again, we've just seen how safe and open this space is. So what I'm going to do, and it can be a little bit awkward to start with, so we'll acknowledge that now so it doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to just stop talking in a second. It's going to be silent, and whoever wants to come off mute and share whoever came to mind or a part of their journey that came to mind, I'm going to let you just share with the group and talk a little bit about your story. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking now, and whoever wants to step into that spotlight can absolutely go for it.
Liam, I'm happy to jump in. Okay, so being involved in surf lifesaving, like a lot of us are, it's a huge family community, and it's one of those things that during this the lockdown, that a lot of people on my patrol, males particularly, have gone through a pretty tough time. A lot of those have been challenged around family, having children that couldn't go to school, and also, you know, partners or themselves being impacted by their inability to be able to work. And then that uncertainness in terms of whether they are going to be able to provide for their family. So what I've kind of found in this period is that I've been kind of like a mentor for everybody else. And it's quite interesting in terms of this session today that I did one in the workspace. I've been working the whole way through. As you can tell, I didn't dress up just for this. And one of the things that kind of has been clear to me is that, you know, those positive people, those big personalities, and I'm one of those, very distracted personality, but very people orientated, tend to get others gravitating towards you for that help and support. So when you reach out to people around normal social conversations, it invariably comes back into their state of health and how they're feeling about that. And one of the things that I reflected on that as well, playing that role, is you tend to actually forget about yourself. And so a session I did last week, which was really nice, was an opportunity to go, well, how do you feel about the lockdown and the impact it's been on you and your friends and family, etc. And it took me by surprise because I hadn't thought about that for nearly 6 months because I'd played a role for everybody else in my connected world. So it's been, as I say, the word reflective is fantastic. It was a great opportunity for me to stop and see how I was feeling about things in my world as well. So that's my share.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. I can definitely relate to what you've offered there, Mark, about trying to look after everybody else. I think for myself, I made a real conscious decision at the beginning of lockdown to focus on what was within my control to look after my mental health. So I really focused on my food, and I really focused on exercise, and I really focused on my meditation. And I really tried to focus on when I say what was in my control, try not to get too wrapped up in stuff that was not in my control. And I think because of that, I've been able to help others actually, work their way through everything that's been going on from a mental health point of view through lockdown. And it's always makes me laugh because I've never actually looked up the numbers. Every day we find out the numbers, but I've never looked up the numbers at all. But by 10 a.m. or by lunchtime, somebody's always telling me the numbers, and I just go, righto, they're the numbers. So even for me, like things like knowing the numbers, I've just I haven't like put my head in the sand, but I've just gone, you know what, the numbers aren't in my control. I'll just focus on what I can do. And I think that has really helped me get through lockdown and actually help others as well.
It's a great reflection, Natalie, and sorry, Mark, for falling off the face of the earth as soon as you shared. My internet fell away, but I'd love to hear from either of you just about, you're obviously picking up a bit of load than what you'd normally do, helping people around you who might need it. How do you still take care of yourself through all of that?
Yeah, there's no doubt about picking up the load. I actually had a couple of moments where I thought, you know what, I'm looking after everybody else, but who's looking after me? Like, who's actually asked? I had this kind of, wasn't self-righteousness, but I'm like, kind of had this moment where I'm like, well, no one's asked me as the boss how I'm going. So I felt kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but almost, it's safe space, almost like pissed off that no one was looking after me.
Yeah.
But then I just kind of, did a bit of meditation and again, focusing on what I can control, keeping my balance and keeping my center. And that kind of balanced everything out.
Yeah. It's a great point. And it's going to help. I think we have in a few slides time, we do talk about some of the things we do to help you take care of yourself. And I always kind of say you can't put out a burning house if you're on fire. So you do have to take care of yourself to be able to help other people as well. So we can probably jump back into the slides, Jake, but just a big thank you to everyone who shared anything and everything just then, because it was really cool just to get your perspective and understand how you guys are going. So yeah, we'll jump back into it. Hopefully my internet survives. I'm not sure what happened there, but Murphy's Law, of course, applies. Hopefully
Everyone can see that screen again, and we're back up and running, which is fantastic. So thank you again for everybody for sharing that. And Liam, some stats about some of the stuff that men in our lives have been going through in COVID.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of these stats have a male lens, but certainly there's been an impact on our female counterparts as well. So do keep that in mind. But what we know about men in COVID-19 is essentially they're sleeping more, comfort eating, and drinking more alcohol. So that's a lot of those. They're probably like the most common 3 bad habits that we probably had to think of when we were doing that exercise. And we conducted our own research at the beginning of lockdown with guys in Australia, and 1 in 2 men have not been asked if they're having a difficult time. So 50% of guys have not been asked if they're having a difficult time, but also just under 50% have needed some kind of welfare or support. And 30% have reported weakened relationships, which makes sense, right? Because where do guys catch up? They catch up at the pub, at the gym, at the park, and all those places are closed or opened up with severe restrictions. So, and lastly, just 1 in 6 guys have felt lonely since the start of breakdown, which is completely normal. And 33% of guys have worried about losing their jobs. So these are all really significant stress causes or indicators, and it's a tough time. So if nothing else, after that exercise of sharing, I think take a bit of closure in the fact that we are in this together, and this, I guess the information says that this is happening to everyone, and we all do need each other's help at a time like this. And we do have another video. So Jake's so good at sharing videos and sound that he's going to do one more. So rather than hearing from me, here's a little clip around, I guess, spotting the signs in a mate who might need help.
I do just have to reshare to make sure that the audio is working.
I just wonder what's going to go wrong next.
Nothing's going wrong. Here we go. I think that we're ready. Here's the video. So yeah, that's the spotting the signs piece, and I think that's something we can really resonate with. I think that I know personally that's probably one of my favourite pieces of content, and definitely something that when it comes to spotting the signs and realising some changes in people, that certainly something that might come to the fore there. We just wanted to light up that chat function again and drop.
I think we've lost Jake there, but I knew what he was going to say. So in the chat function, we'd love to hear either something that you've seen in a mate or maybe a sign that wasn't covered in that video. So what are some other signs to look out for in a mate who might be doing it tough is essentially whatever comes to mind, pop that in the chat box. We'd love to, I guess, explore a few of those because we only cover a couple of them. So yeah, I'll wait to see what comes through. I think one really helpful way for this is Jake comes back with that look on his face. But yeah, they can't see the positives in the world is a really great point, Mark. And yeah, just not wanting to do things that they'd usually do is probably a build on that. Things that used to be really positive in their life and no longer seen that way to them. And yeah, I guess thinking back to the people that maybe you've had to check in on your lives, they've probably just been not acting themselves in many ways. And they've probably if anything, it's just being out of character, right? It's people who are usually really jovial, not being jovial, or people who are normally first to training or first to work are late and are a bit more of a mess than usual. So I guess that's the biggest thing is when you're spotting the signs in a mate, it's all about, I guess, knowing them and knowing what's not them and then recognizing that and being able to check in. So thanks for joining us, Jake. I'll get you to share the screen again, mate. No, we can't hear you. Sorry, mate.
Is that better?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, thank you, everyone. Sorry for departing very briefly. Let me pop this back up here. Are we back there? Can everyone's frozen? Yeah, perfect. All right, excellent. So thank you for bearing with us during this. So as we touched on off the top, Movember Conversations is a fantastic tool that we're able to fast track the development of over the COVID lockdown, because we know how important it is for our community to be having these conversations with one another. So it's based around the Alec Principle, and you might have seen the Alec Principle through Are You OK, who designed this tool, and it pretty much just breaks down the awkwardness of the conversation and helps with a clear framework of how to tackle a conversation. And the A is to ask the question, the L is to listen without judgment or distractions, which is super important. The E is to encourage action, and then the C is to make sure that we're checking in at another time. So using this principle, we're able to build out and develop the Movember Conversations tool. And this is something that I know I've used a lot over the past few months. It's a little bit of like a choose your own adventure type interactive tool. We can go in there, you're sort of faced with a person who isn't responsive. He is starting to show some of those signs that we saw on that recent video, and is been quite difficult to have a conversation with, and you can go in and you can plug in some different responses, and it sort of takes you on a little bit of a conversational journey and just helps you understand what might be the best ways to go about it and the right things to say. And I think that certainly what I've learned from this tool is that what sort of feels like the most obvious answer isn't necessarily the right way to go about it. And if you can scan that QR code and just make sure you have it there for later, because to go on and just navigate your way through this tool, or go to www.conversations.movember.com and just have a little bit of an experiment with that, and just sort of help to flex that conversational muscle is super important. So just a few things to think about before you do initiate a conversation with someone who might be struggling. There's a few sort of key things to keep in mind. There's some key considerations is to think, are you in the right headspace to have that conversation? as we spoke about before, like there are so many of the people who are initiating these conversations are the ones that, are always trying to look after other people, but you need to make sure that you're in the right space to be doing so. Are you willing and able to really give them the time to listen? And that's really important, to make sure that, there is that time and the space is correct for you to be having that conversation, and it all feeds into you being in the right headspace too. So can you find the right time and place that works for both of us? So it's not overly forced, it's not rushed, it's not busy. It's not another priority for that time, that you have set aside, that it is totally dedicated to having this conversation and being okay for it to run over and also that fourth consideration, should you be alerting someone close to them if you're concerned? And as we said off the very top, if you are concerned about either yourself or someone there's a whole range of different support mechanisms at movember.com/get-support, and certainly the best way to go about it is to jump in there, and if you are worried about someone, then there's definitely a range of different ways that you can offer support through those mechanisms. So dealing with denial can be tough. We know how hard sometimes it can be and how awkward it can be to have those conversations, and sometimes there really isn't anything wrong, and maybe we just misread a situation. You can just have a friendly chat, but other times people can be quite stubborn in having those conversations, and they won't admit that they are struggling. So it's important to remember that an observation always helps support your reason for concern. Perhaps they're not ready to talk, and perhaps they are fine and you've just misread things, but perhaps it's also just not the right time. So if there is an example of a time or some times where you've seen them changing, and going back to that spotting the signs video, if there is some sort of repetitive behaviour that you've noticed in them, then it is good to be able to use that as an example, and to let the person know that you're there for them. Just the fact that you have reached out, you want to stay connected, and that you do care, it might be enough to get them thinking about finding some support.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Thanks for sharing that tool, and can't recommend enough that that tool, and it's a great way to practice having a conversation before you go and check on someone who's real and you really care about, and that kind of thing as well. So I guess that kind of brings us to the final leg of this presentation, and we've told you a lot about what we're doing, and hopefully you've got a bit of an experience now about what it's about at Movember. It's about having real conversations, finding reasons to connect and share, and check in on ourselves. But the reality is we need you, and it's awesome to have LSV fundraising with us this year. But there's a significant reason behind why we need you. So why we need you? Each year, more than 500,000 men die by suicide around the world. That's one man that we lose every minute of every day. So more than 9.9 million, so nearly 10 million guys are living with or beyond prostate cancer, and globally, testicular cancer is the most common cancer among young men aged 15 to 39. So these are, I guess, the cornerstones behind why we are so appreciative of your support. And here's, I guess, an example of where that support actually goes. So one last video, and then we're almost home. Unfortunately, this is the first time I've had to do this, but I do need to correct that stat now, because as of today, the ABS data has come out that we actually lose 7 Aussie blokes to suicide a day now, not 6. So that's the fresh out of the ABS. That's the newest information, which is, horrible news. But I guess coming back to what can you do? So when supporting Movember, you can grow a Mo, you can move for Movember, and you can host. So, one of the biggest questions we get asked is, I can't grow a Mo, or I don't want to grow a Mo, so how can I help? So those second two are certainly a way to get involved. And I will break those down now. So any St Kilda fans will recognise that's Jaron Geary there. So how to grow a Mo. It's not that hard. Most of us do it pretty easily. Some of us even grow beast-like beers like Nicholas, but it's all about shaving down at the start of the month. This year we're shaving down on the 30th because that's a Friday. So we want to shave down on the 30th, and then for the month of Movember, it's about growing the best Mo you can, letting people know that you've signed up and you're supporting Movember, and then that's when you can join the LSV team online and place your picture and share everyone how your Mo's going. So that's growing. As far as moving, you can move 60 Ks for the month. So commit to moving that, whether it's running, walking, or something else, jogging, sprinting, crawling, whatever it is. But commit to 60 Ks for the month, or you can host. So host is a bit different for us, right? It's not as easy as it used to be to have people around for a barbecue or have a bit of an event on, but you can have meals with the mates if you're in one of those areas where you're lucky enough to be able to. You can have a virtual shave off, share with your mates that you've shaved down your Mo. You can have a bit of fun playing sport or doing some kind of virtual fitness challenge or anything like that, or a trivia or a FIFA tournament. So host is a little bit different this year, but certainly there's no better reason to get together than Movember this year. So use that as a reason to connect up with your mates. And there's a new way you can support this year, and that's Mo Your Own Way. So it's a fun challenge. It's a tough challenge. It's climbing a mountain. It's holding your breath for 3 hours underwater. It's like our good friend Kieran here. It's getting showered in chocolate milk. It's something crazy. And it's a testament to all those people out there who go above and beyond for us. And now they can choose to do that and come up with their own epic challenge. So we're almost there. And just to, I guess, finish off, a quick wrap of what we've covered today. So hopefully you've got a real sense of the important work that Movember does. You've got a bit of information on how to support a mate who's struggling and a tool to help you do that, and some great options on how to get involved this Movember and to help us change the face of men's health globally. Second lucky last. So firstly, thank you everyone again for sharing. And if for whatever reason something's just not quite sitting right within you and you do want to just take that extra step to get support, www.movember.com/get support. It's just a massive list of resources, so you can really go there and then pick the most appropriate. So really want to encourage you guys to use that if there's anything that's not quite sitting right in you. And otherwise, just spend 20 minutes today, go for a walk outside, do something you enjoy, and make sure you sort of lift your spirits a bit after sharing and reflecting so deeply. And lucky last, before we throw back to you, Sheila. So if you want to get your phone out right now, guys, and scan that QR code on the screen, it will take you to the LSV Movember page, and you can join the team in the next 90 seconds. So we might leave that up while you close things out, Sheila, but that code there takes you right to the LSV fundraising team. It's awesome to have you guys supporting us. We really do appreciate it. The year that's been, there's been no more important time to grow a Mo and support a mate after everything we've gone through. So yeah, we really do appreciate it. And thanks so much for working with Jake and I as we battled our internet woes and everything else, but we do hope you got something out of it and really appreciate you all making the time.
Liam and Jake, you guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, first of all, for the presentation. As you can see via the chat line, all the thanks and appreciation is coming through. This is only the beginning, guys, so please circulate this link around with all your teams. Nick, I look forward to seeing how this progresses throughout the month. And for all our Mo sisters and everybody else that isn't growing, there's some amazing ideas that the guys have shared with us. So please get on board and reach out to me if you need any support with this, because there's a lot happening, which is just fantastic. But as a reminder, this session has been recorded and will be put onto the webpage. But really, really appreciate everybody's time today, and more importantly, everybody's involvement. I know this is such a therapeutic thing for myself, and just to see you all getting involved is just absolutely fantastic. So on behalf of myself and Emma and Jake and Liam, thank you everybody. Cheers, Mark. And if you have your camera turned on, you know, give a bit of a wave to the guys. I'll be in touch, Liam. Jake, thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was really great.
Cheers. It's probably a good shout there, Sheila. Don't hold your breath underwater for 3 hours.
So good. I got your back.